mic down. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of working with. So I figured let us actually look into it, like legit look into OBS. No, we are on OBS. Look into Project 2025. So without further ado, one thing that I've been plugging everywhere is my awesome buddy Jazz Blues Florida. They keep posting all these wonderful live performances. Apparently, I had no idea that this is what they do. Here's what I know them for: Project 2025 text to speech conversion. I have been listening to this very occasionally at work. As you could see, I've listened to this first hour, second hour, and I had started the third hour, but it is quite long, even as an audio book format, 25 hours in total. But, you know, I think I was listening to it at 1.5 speed, and you could, of course, skip around. If I remember correct, part 2, or maybe it was part 3, is a lot of just naming the people who put this together and their credentials, which you can kind of skip if you're more interested in what kinds of policies that the Project 2025 seems to be promoting. But one thing you can do as well, which I recommend if you're really, really ADHD addled brain, like myself can often be, you can go down here to transcript, open the transcript, and then you have the text to speech here, audiobook format here in your screen, and then you have your transcript here, and you could do things like Control F Marxism, and oh look, Marxism. They talk about Marxism. There's 2 times that Marxism is used in part 1. The first time Marxism is used is right here. Let's have a listen.
Leadership. The conservative promise it's not 1980. In 2020.
Oh, buffering.
The game has changed. The long march of cultural Marxism through our...
No, buffering. Why do you have to be like this? Maybe if I go to... can you hear the audio on this, by the way? How do I... Quality. Let's go to, like, trash quality. Okay. Can you hear the audio on the video? Is the audio on the video sounding okay?
Institutions has come to pass. The federal government is a behemoth, weaponized against American citizens and conservative values, with freedom and liberty under siege as never before. The task at hand to reverse this tide and restore our republic to its original moorings is too great for any one conservative policy shop to spearhead. It requires the collective action of our movement.
Right? So if you're wanting to look through this and like, where is it talking about Marxism? You could look for that specifically. As easy as opening this text to speech, Control F, and this is a surefire, speedy way to see what kinds of things are in here.
Leadership.
Oops, that's the first one we saw. Where is the second occurrence of this happening? Right here.
Stop trying to substitute its own preferences for those of the people. And the next...
Man, this buffering is awful. This is
conservative president should champion the dynamic genius of free enterprise against the grim miseries of elite-directed socialism. The promise of socialism, communism, Marxism, progressivism, fascism, whatever name it chooses, is simple. Government control of the economy can ensure equal
outcomes for all people. Is right. Okay, so I'm not really showing you this to show you the video. I'm showing you this to show you if you need to quickly find out what kinds of things are in Project 2025. This is one of the faster ways to do it. If you you can listen to this at home or while you're doing the dishes or taking out the trash, or you could listen to it on some Bluetooth headphones under a beanie at work if you're super slick and sly. However you want to do it, but this is a way to understand what kinds of policies the conservative movement is pushing. But the other method, which is what I was going to do for this stream, is to look at the whole 900-page document and just read it from beginning to end. Okay, so I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to read it from beginning to end. But I thought what we could do is we could do Control F on here and look up things like transgender. Buffering the video. Oh, thank you so much, Tawirli, for the donation. Yep, communism, progressivism, fascism, all of our favorite isms that are all more or less the same thing. So if we look at transgenderism, or if we look at transgender, it's because of running the stream, it's taking a second to find all of the examples of it here. But so we have look at America under the ruling and cultural elite today. Inflation is ravaging family budgets, drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Okay, that's one instance of the arguments they have to make about transgenderism. What about here? Pornography manifested today is the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children. For instance, is not the political Gordian knot inextricably binding up desperate claims about free speech, property rights, sexual liberation, and child welfare? It has no claim to First Amendment protection. Its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women. Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Oh boy. So that's if you want to look up transgenderism. Just the key phrase, I keep saying transgenderism because that's the conservative buzzword for it. But if we look up, key things like Marxism, transgender, probably like Antifa or something is going to be in here. But the thing that I wanted to focus on is verbs, because I'm wondering, so what does Project 2025 promote as far as its goals? What are the verbs that Project 2025 is trying to enact? So let's start with should. The should is going to be the types of things that a reader of Project 2025 is being recommended to do. So we've got should. Conservatives should be confident that we can rescue our kids, reclaim our culture, revive our economy, and defeat the anti-American left. This is just kind of blathering. Woo, 2,500 cases of the word should in this document. So there's going to be a lot to dig through here. We should not want it any other way. Oh, this is the duty history as put before us and the standard by which our generation of conservatives will be judged. We shouldn't have any. That's more blathering. We are at the beginning of the document here. Let's get further down. Pornography should be outlawed. We saw this earlier about the product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Pornography should be outlawed. Oh boy. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public libraries who purvey it should be classed and registered sex offenders, and telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered. This is like a giant First Amendment, violation here. That's fun, what they're calling for. What other shoulds do we have in here? Even before we achieve that long-term goal, parents' rights as their children's primary educators should be non-negotiable in American schools. States, cities, and county school boards, union bosses, principals, and teachers who disagree should be immediately cut off from federal funds. So they want to make basically the Don't Say Gay bill of Florida. They want to take that to the federal level. Awesome stuff. So cool. Such a really nice, normal country. Let's see what some of the other shoulds are in this document. Conservatives should gratefully celebrate the greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning Roe v. Wade, a decision that for 5 decades has made a mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the deaths of tens of millions of unborn children. Of course, they want to celebrate that. Both celebrating the overturning of Roe v. Wade and some of the wonderful artwork conservative commentators are making, sexualizing and making fun of the, that Kamala Harris is a woman. Conservatives just keep doing that. That's fine. That's great. Let the mask slip. Let 50% of the U.S. population know how you feel about women and their rights and such. I love it. Conservatives should ardently pursue these pro-life and pro-family policies while recognizing that many women who find themselves in immensely difficult and often tragic situations and the heroism of every choice to become a mother, alternative options to abortion, especially blah, blah, blah. More shoulds around abortion. International organizations and agreements that erode our Constitution, rule of law, or popular sovereignty should not be reformed. They should be abandoned. Illegal immigration should be ended, not mitigated. The border sealed, not reprioritized. Economic engagement with China should be ended. Just end economic engagement with China. Go ahead and look around your dwelling here, and every single thing that has made in China, I guess, is just going to cease to exist in the U.S. International agreements, comparative advantage, and stuff like that be damned, apparently. Our manufacturing and industrial base should be restored, not allowed to deteriorate further. Awesome. Are you getting all this, folks? Are we enjoying this this deep look into the actual wording of Project 2025? This is something I thought would be interesting to do. So I hope that it is. Off topic, but how do you get your dog to sit still for so long? I don't have a dog. I don't understand the question. What else do we have? So many shoulds to go through. Let me skip down to let's say should around 50. We'll see where we're at with that. Attorneys working in the Office of White House Counsel serve as legal advisors to the White House policy operation by reviewing executive orders, agency regulations, and other policy-related functions. Here again, subordinates should be deeply committed to the president's agenda and see their role as helping to accomplish the agenda through problem solving and advocacy. They should not erect roadblocks out of an abundance of caution. Rather, they should offer practical legal advice on how to promote the president's agenda within the bounds of the law. They are adding for good measure, but I'm guessing what this is really all about. Maybe Mike Pence not pushing forward the elector scheme. A lot of this was what the various appointed positions the president works with, his cabinet positions. What are they? What functions do they serve? What types of people should be promoted to those positions? And all of that is almost, just interesting as an educational thing, not just for conservatives, but what does the what's the word I'm thinking of? Inspector General. What's the Inspector General? What's the function? What types of people get that role? The next administration should re-examine this policy. What policy? My counsel is the primary gateway for communication between White House and Department of Justice. Traditionally, both the White House counsel and the Attorney General have issued a memo requiring all contact between the two institutions to occur only between the Office of White House Counsel and the Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General. The next administration should re-examine this policy and determine whether it might be more effective or more appropriate for communication to occur through additional channels. The White House Counsel also works closely with the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel to seek opinions on, for example, matters of policy development and the constitutionality of presidential power and privileges. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so I feel like we have tapped into should quite a bit. We obviously could go on quite a while since, like I said, there's 2,500 occurrences of the word should throughout this document. But let's go ahead and switch it up and try must. How many occurrences of must exist within this document here? I'm going to go ahead and read some of chat as well, since I have neglected chat, and I'm sorry to do that, but I don't actually have chat open on my screen, even though it's showing on. Oh, and I'm noticing that you cannot read all of the document. I wonder if there's a way I can fix that. Maybe this shows all of the document on the screen. That's my bad. I need to do a better job of looking at how the screen looks to the viewers as opposed to just to myself. I think I could zoom in one more. Is this legible to everyone? Hopefully. Let's see here. Thanks for covering this. I want to contribute, but 25 rhetoric is like Teflon on my brain. They should throw this audio game input. Definitely could have had made this document shorter. I wonder if there's like a benefit to making it so long. Like, you folks know how scams will a lot of times, I think H Bomber Guy talked about this in a video, that a lot of times, you know, Nigerian prince type scams will seem obviously like scams. You're like, why would they make it seem obviously like a scam? Well, that's intentional, because they want to filter out people who are going to know that it's a scam and not waste their time with them. They want to only deal with people who would fall for the scam. So they make it seem like an obvious scam, and that's how they, you know, filter that out. And I wonder sometimes with documents like these, you know, when the first hour or two of the, you know, text to speech version of this document is like a dry recitation of who wrote it and their accomplishments. I'm like, oh, is this intentional? So that, you know, the meat of this, you know, the people who might, you know, make a big stink about what is in this document, you know, won't put in the time to read it, I wonder. Anyway, he doesn't. I am a dog. That's true. Rat is the goodest boy. I see no lie with that, especially for reading this. Thank you, Jaywalking Punk Anarchist. I am. So Rad the dog, you're telling me you don't have a smaller dog. I do not have any other canine roommates at this moment. We're going to read through. I'm surprised that a dog with ADHD can sit still for so long. You know, insert some sort of like Vyvanse or stimulant joke, I guess. That's like the streamer jokes these days. How long if it's long, no one will read it. Yep, that's what I'm thinking the goal is. Your volume is low. Volume is fine for me. I'm sorry about the volume. I can try turning it up a little bit more. I don't want to blow folks away. I do have like a bunch of covers on this mic. As you can see, it's got like a big foam thing on it. So I'm filtering out a lot of mouth noises, but I think potentially I'm filtering out a lot of my talking volume as well, which is unfortunate. But okay, so back to the text at hand. How many occurrences of must? Must is a lot lower in here, only 500 occurrences of must. Let's see what the musts of Project 2025 are all about. For conservatives to have a fighting chance to take on the administrative state and reform our federal government, the work must start now. The entirety of this effort is to support the next conservative president, whoever he or she may be. Yet again, the beginning of this is just kind of blather. Oh, Pillar 1. This volume puts in one place a consensus view of how major federal agencies must be governed. So if, you know, there's obviously sort of table of contents style aspects to this document as well that you can quickly scroll through if you don't have to read the 900 pages of it. That's my point. That's the point of this live stream, is that you don't have to read all 900 pages to see what's in it. You can quickly scroll through and look at table of contents style things like these to figure out what's in it. You could do what we're doing here and Control F terms that might be relevant, such as must. and see what must be done in here. This is a quote. We can skip that. Promise 1, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. The next conservative president must get to work pursuing the true priority of politics, the well-being of the American family. In many ways, the entire point of centralizing political power is to subvert the family. Its purpose is to replace people's natural loves and loyalties with unnatural ones. You see this in the popular left-wing aphorism, government is simply the name we give to the things we choose to do together. So this is your sort of standard conservative talking point about the family as the cornerstone, the bedrock of American life, of American politics. Therefore, we don't need welfare or food banks or, government housing, HUD, social services of any kind. We don't need that because those things are subverting the family. So obviously that is going to be in here, right? Today, the American family is in crisis. 40% of all children are born to unmarried mothers, including more than 70% of black children. There is no government program that can replace the hole in a child's soul cut out by the absence of a father. I wonder if they're going to say anything about how, imprisoning someone for, having marijuana or something like that is contributing to this. Or perhaps how I know, not to name names, but there are people in my family or friends' families who are a couple where there is a mother and father, but they remain unmarried because of the way taxes and social services are handled in this country. So that causes the reporting on this to be inaccurate when there are a lot of people that stay together as a family but are remaining unmarried for the host of benefits that incurs. Furthermore, the next conservative president must understand that using government alone to respond to symptoms of a family crisis is a dead end. Let's see what some of the other musts are. The next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, SOGI, I don't even hear that, diversity, equality, and inclusion, DEI, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other terms used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency, regulation, contract, grant, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. Okay, so obviously the way that you solve and protect the First Amendment is to absolutely get rid of descriptive terms and language like diversity, gender equality, gender awareness, abortion, reproductive health. Those should no longer be in any piece of legislation or regulation in the federal government at all. Ban it. Get it out of here. Get rid of it. We have no First Amendment until we get rid of these terms in all, federal documents. Awesome. Why does it matter that they're black? This document is racist. Yeah, they want to target that. I think a lot of that is sort of the conservative. What do they call that? Oh, the democratic mind plantation or whatever it is that Candace Owens calls it. So that's the reason why conservatives are some of the worst when it comes to tokenization and stuff like that. Cool. In our schools, the question of parental authority over their children's education is a simple one. Schools serve parents, not the other way around. That is, of course, the best argument for universal school choice, a goal all conservatives and conservative presidents must pursue. But even before we achieve that long-term goal, parents' rights as their children's primary educators should be non-negotiable in American schools. So this is more of pushing for school choice, which essentially amounts to, you know, private school for the kids that can afford it. Everyone else gets shuffled off into charter schools if they pass the raffle that gets them into it. And if they fail the raffle, then they can go into super overcrowded, abysmally funded, totally left behind public schools. That's their sort of privatize the education system goals as far as conservatives are concerned. And then with this last little bit about parents' choice is a little bit more of that, don't say gay bill and stuff like that. The antithesis of what was just passed in California where, hey, maybe it is okay if a, student is opening up to a counselor or a teacher in a way that is not a harm to themselves or others, but is just something that they're, coming forward about that they might not want getting back home for, religious reasons or something. They fear repercussion at home. Stuff like that. Sorry for kind of trailing and jumping all over the place in my speech. I don't want to leave any dead air. I don't want to leave you folks, I don't want to leave you wanting of information and engagement. So I just keep talking, right? It's fun watching them try to attack Kamala. Oh my goodness. Twitter has just been such a hilarious shit show. Part of me hates it because it's awful and becoming like basically unusable as a social media platform. But then parts of me love it. It's the part of me that loves going into like a libertarian capitalist or like anarcho-capitalist subreddit and, shit posting and clowning on everyone in there. Going to, end wokeness's Twitter and just reposting and clowning on them. I just love it. Ooh, thanks. Tawuri, I hope that I want to pronounce this right because you're donating again. Tawuri. I hope I'm getting that right. That is what one of our politicians are doing in New Zealand. He cited the Heritage Foundation is underfunding public schools and opening charters. Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool to do that. Can we take a moment to be sane and realize there's difference between a think tank white paper fantasy? That is true. That is true. And there's plenty of good news to be had. My understanding is Elon Musk, although pledging to donate $45 million a month to the Trump candidacy, which is, a lot of money over the course of 4 months, he claimed he was only donating that to a PAC. And then when you look at the PAC, apparently he has made no donations to it as of yet. So that's kind of funny. Love to see it. JD Vance, if you look it up, JD Vance has beat a record for lowest approval rating. The first negative approval rating for a VP at this point in the race since, I believe, the elections of 2000. It's like over 20-year record destroyed by JD Vance for being completely unlikable. If any of you saw Kamala Harris's first rally, that little, 15, 20-minute speech she gave, pretty hyped about that. Pretty cool stuff being said. So let's not get too doomer here. I know we're heading deep into the Project 2025 stuff, but let's not be too doomer about it, eh? Let's get back to the musts in here. The pro-family promises expressed in this book and central to the next conservative president's agenda must go much further than the traditional narrow definition of family issues. Every threat to family sustainability must be confronted. This resolve should color each of our policies. Consider our approach to big tech. The worst of these companies prey on children like drug dealers to get them addicted to their mobile apps. Many Silicon Valley executives famously don't let their own kids have smartphones. I remember this from the audiobook section. I mean, obviously, sometimes conservatives will point to an issue that exists that we here on the left will agree is an issue that exists, but then we will just completely disagree on the solutions to that issue. So obviously, Instagram and stuff has problems. There was that whistleblower that put out that Instagram knew that self-harm and body image issues were worsened by their product. And those are things to keep in mind when it comes to how we engage with them as, individuals ourselves, or as parents or friends or teachers, or, as citizens of a country. But that does not mean that Project 2025 has these solutions to social media, if you can believe it. I think that they likely don't have the solution. What do we got here for a must? Let's be clear, the most egregious regulations. Can I just stop on the word egregious, by the way? Total tangent. I think it's interesting that there are a lot of words with two G's where each G has a different pronunciation. Gauge, garage, pedagogy, egregious. It's an interesting linguistic word thing that you would have two letters in a word with totally different pronunciations. Maybe that's just me and things that I think are fun. I'm great at parties. I'm great at parties, by the way, when these are the things that interest me. Okay. Let's be clear. The most egregious regulations promulgated by the current administration come from one place, the Oval Office. The president cannot hide behind the agencies, as his many executive orders make clear. His is the responsibility. Is that not supposed to be this? His is the responsibility for the regulations that threaten American communities, schools, and families. A conservative president must move swiftly to do away with these vast abuses of presidential power and remove the career and political bureaucrats who fuel it. So this is, I think people were making fun of Trump for this, that we're going to reverse everything that Joe Biden did on day one, which I guess means, reverse the infrastructure bill, reverse, protecting vets who got irreversible, lung damage from the burn pits in the Middle East and stuff like that. Just reverse everything. That's their policy. To which I kind of like Kamala's election slogan that we will not go back. I like that. I think that the Make America Great Again, as positive as an affirmation as that sound, it is intrinsically about going backwards to something. So saying we will not go back is just such a beautiful refutation of that concept. Anyways, all right, here's one of the other musts is somewhere in this paragraph. As monolithic as the left's institutional power appears to be, it appears to be, someone has never been, in a leftist Discord chat or a leftist subreddit or a leftist, group on Slack or something like that where they're all tearing into each other all the time. But okay, as monolithic as the left's institutional power appears to be, it originates with appropriations from Congress and is made complete by a feckless president. A conservative president must look to the legislative branch for decisive action. The administrative state is not going anywhere until Congress acts to retrieve its own power from bureaucrats at the White House. But in the meantime, there are many executive tools a courageous conservative president can use to handcuff the bureaucracy, push Congress to return to its constitutional responsibility, restore power over Washington to the American people, bring the administrative state to heel, and in the process, defang and defund the woke culture warriors who have infiltrated every last institution in America. That is right. Every institution in America, it's woke. Military-industrial complex, more like woke military-industrial complex. Military-industrial complex, more like woke. Which one did I say? Prison-industrial complex? Military-industrial complex? That's all woke now, folks. I'm tired of the woke CIA, the woke FBI. They must be stopped. I do a decent Trump impression, I'd like to think. The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats. I mean, didn't they kind of already do that with the Chevron decision and basically, get rid of experienced people in various departments and replace them with partisan hacks? That's my understanding of what the Chevron decision does. Look elsewhere if you would like to know more about that. We don't really have the time to cover that here today. We got so much on our food bowl as it is. Where was I? Let's just start this paragraph over. So easily distracted. The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats, how to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government, how to restore the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state, and how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. Finally, the president can restore public confidence and accountability to our most important government function of all, natural defense. Natural defense is woke, folks. The American people desire a military full of highly skilled servicemen and women who can protect the homeland and our interests overseas, and the president's ears, apparently. The next conservative president must end the left's social experimentation with the military, restore war fighting as its sole mission, and set defeating the threat of the Chinese Communist Party as its highest priority. So the funny thing about this, right, is that the conservatives think that by being more inclusive, racially, religiously even, embracing people of various, LGBT and other, indicators of what a person might be, it being inclusive of that is destroying our military, when actually, isn't recruitment like way down and stuff? Don't you want to be reaching out to all these different people? I mean, not me, because, screw the military industrial complex, but you get what I'm saying, right? That the conservatives should want to reach out to as many people as possible to have a robust military, but I guess they do not want that. Promise 3, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. The United States belongs to we the people. I know there's something about, tired, defenseless, poor, yearning to breathe free or something like that, but I mean, that's not in the Constitution, okay? That's just on a statue, a statue of a woman, by the way. So, conservatives, it's a woman, so they're probably not reading it. It's a poem, that's some libtard, educated, not social justice. What's the term I'm thinking of? Liberal arts. That's some liberal arts crap, if I've ever heard it. A poem about yearning to breathe free. They probably know nothing about it. Let's keep going. Promise number 3, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. The United States belongs to we the people. All government authority derives from the consensus of the people, and our nation's success derives from the character of its people. Our nation's success derives from the character of its people. I don't know. This is kind of, maybe they're not sending their best kind of dialogue. They're not sending their bests. They're sending rapists and murderers kind of a speech here. The American people's right to rule ourselves is the obverse of our duty. We cannot outsource to others our obligation to ensure the conditions that allow our families, local communities, churches, synagogues, and neighborhoods. Churches and synagogues, but not mosques, huh? Mosques didn't make the cut in this document, apparently. And neighborhoods to thrive. The buck stops with each of us. So each of us must have the freedom to pursue the good for ourselves and those entrusted in our care. What are some other musts? I'll skip ahead a little bit because I'm definitely not going to go through all 528 instances of the term must in here. But I will go through a few. Taking the reins of government. America's bicentennial, which culminated on July 4th, 1976, was a spirited and unifying celebration of our country, its founding, and its ideals. As we approach our nation's 250th anniversary, which will take place during the next presidency, America is now divided between two opposing forces: woke revolutionaries and those who believe in the ideas revolutionaries and those who believe in the ideals of the American Revolution. Which is kind of funny because if you remember, if you've been a longtime viewer of the channel, where am I looking at? American Revolution. Here's the two opposing forces. If you have been a longtime viewer of the channel, Bo of the Fifth Column and myself did a review of Common Sense by Thomas Paine, where I essentially came to the conclusion that a lot of the liberal ideals of the Enlightenment are awesome and were championed by Marx and the anarchists of history and others, and libertarian capitalist types, and that it's interesting that capitalist libertarian types and like anarcho-communist types can both look to Enlightenment ideals and find common cause with them. Anyway, the former, the woke revolutionaries, believe that America is and always has been systemically racist. It more or less has been, right? As we've seen in books like The New Jim Crow, in books like Are Prisons Obsolete? You can just look at the numbers, look at the way that the history of the slave catchers was morphed into the history of the Night Watch and the history of the police. You can look at the way that modern vagrancy laws and loitering laws and stuff came out of the black codes, and the ways that newly freed slaves were quickly imprisoned and re-enslaved on, not to trigger anyone with the name here, but trumped up charges. Great stuff. Yeah. I mean, if you know your history, there is systemic racism within it. And there's a quote that I like about democracy, that the greatest threat to democracy is the belief that it has been achieved. And I think a lot of goals fit that dynamic, that our goal for, gender equality, racial equality should always be that it hasn't been achieved, that there's always work to be done in one way or another. Anyway, so the former, the woke Americans, believe that America has always been systemically racist. That's because we are truth-pilled. That it is not worth celebrating. I don't think that that's true. I think there is definitely aspects of our history worth celebrating. Labor Day is a American invention from our radical labor movement, as you might know. And must be fundamentally transformed largely through centralized administrative state. I think one of the failures may be the wrong term, one of the mistakes of BLM was pushing so much for federal change, where I feel like a lot of the focus of BLM should have been acknowledging that state and local governments are the ones who predominantly control your, sheriff's department, police department, and stuff like that. But yeah, this idea that, the woke crowd is largely about centralized, authoritarian administrative state, and the conservatives are not, is totally laughable when one side has giant flags on their front lawns and vehicles, celebrating an authoritarian insurrectionist political leader, where, the left seems to, be pretty well divided on what kind of political leaders they like, like a little bit of Biden is nice, a little bit of Kamala, a little bit of Bernie Sanders or whatever. Anyways, I can't believe we got 46 people watching, by the way. Can we get 46 people liking the stream? Wow, 40 likes on the stream. Actually, that's amazing as well. I hope that you are enjoying the show. The latter, the ones who love the American Revolution, 1776, let's go. The latter believe in America's history. No, they don't. And heroes, maybe like heroification of, Thomas Jefferson or whatever. Its principles and promise, except for they don't believe in, the First Amendment or really like so many of the amendments to the Constitution they do not believe in, but okay. And in everyday Americans and the American way of life, they believe in the Constitution, except for, Trump, who says he wants to suspend the Constitution temporarily, right? Be dictator for a day, he's quoted as saying. And Republican government. They got to get this Republican government in there. I'm sure you've heard the memes about we aren't a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, as if those two things, could not function at the same time. We are a representative democracy where the representatives are democratically elected. But I thought about doing a whole video on that because I remember growing up, my conservative father would use that phrase a lot, and I was curious to do a deep dive into the history of that phrase and stuff. So let me know if I should do that in the future. Anyway, conservatives, the Americanists in this battle, must fight for the soul of America, which is very much at stake. Dun dun dun. Here is another must in the document. In order to carry out the president's desires, political appointees must be given the tools, knowledge, and support to overcome the federal government's obstructionist human resources departments. Get the human resources departments out of here. They're just slowing up our authoritarian takeover of the federal government, apparently. More fundamentally, the new administration must fill its ranks with political appointees. Devine, Kurt, and then observe that Trump. Let's go backwards in the must category, just curiously, because I've been going forward lately, and the forward is like way into the no, sorry. When I've been searching terms so far, I've only gone to like the first 30 instances of a term being used, which is still going to be in the very bare bones, highfalutin, like conceptual aspects of the document and not into the like actual goals. So let's go backwards here and see what some of the later instances of must are in this document. Focus any regulatory activities on maintaining bank capital adequacy. Election officials must clamp down on the Fed's incorporation of environmental, social, and governance factors into its mandate, including by amending its financial stability mandate. Bum, bum, bum. Reforms. Ba, ba, ba. Let's go back. The equity agenda. The equity agenda. Under the Biden administration, the Treasury Department has appointed a counselor for racial equity, established an advisory committee on racial equity, and created an office for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. All these should be eliminated. Treasury has created several new offices to promote equity and has made this its first of 5 strategic goals in its fiscal year 2022 to I wonder how you would say this year, 2022, 22-26, I guess, right? 22-26. Strategic plan. Equity is identified as a cross-cutting theme in 15 of 19 of the plan's objectives. The avowed purpose of these initiatives is to implement policies that deliberately favor some races or ethnicities over others. Remember, this is a big lie of conservatives, having gay marriage is not promoting gay marriages over other marriages. It's just trying to have, a more equal standing for all citizens and not, treating people unfairly. Having diversity quotas, because I wasn't sure how this stuff functioned at first. And you always hear like, oh, well, when they have, a diversity quota or what's the term I'm thinking of? Someone in chat know what the term I'm thinking of, where you give somebody a, scholarship to school or admittance into a school with their, race or ethnicity being like a factor. What's the term I'm thinking of? Come on, chat. Don't fail me now. Racial, what's it called? Diversity, the term for giving someone affirmative action. Thank you. Affirmative action. That's the term I think of. So I had thought that affirmative action, the conservatives had always said affirmative action is taking, a position, a slot at a university away from a highly qualified white student and giving it to an unqualified black student. That's what it's doing. And I thought, that does seem foolish in a way, like taking away from someone qualified and giving to someone unqualified does seem like a wrong thing to do. But when you look into it, it's like, oh, what they do is they take all of their applicants, and if there are two people where, let's say their SATs are the same or kind of fall within a very similar range, their admission letters are like both, of comparable quality, their grades, their GPA is of comparable quality, then they will consider other demographics such as, well, if this person is, Hispanic, statistically, they faced more barriers to get to where they are educationally than this other student. And so we should keep that in mind and perhaps favor them, all else being equal, which explained that way sounds pretty reasonable if you ask me, which you did by tuning in to this live stream. Where was we? We was looking at the, is this the current steps, or is this the steps that they want to impose? Let's find out. Are these the current steps regarding the equity agenda, or are these the steps they want to do? Identify every Treasury official who participated in DEI initiatives and interview him or her or them. Come on, or them. Jeez, Louise. For the purpose of determining the scope and nature of these initiatives and to ensure that such initiatives are completely ended. We need to end diversity. We need to end equity. No more equity. No more inclusion. Make public immediately all communications relating to the work of the Treasury's critical race theory and DEI initiatives. I guess just based on this, I'm not against, if they're not public already, I'm not against them being like publicly available. All communications related to it seems a bit much, like literally people's personal emails, seems impractical to say the least. But if you're having, critical race theory or DEI initiatives, the text of which should be, I guess, publicly available. Treat the participation in any critical race theory or DEI initiatives without objection on constitutional or moral grounds as per se grounds for termination of employment. Just completely fire, anyone who was engaging in, these initiatives. Expose and make public all training materials and initiatives designed to single out any race, ethnicity, or sex for special treatment. Well, that's going to be easy because this won't exist. Obviously, their goal is color blindness, so to speak here. So they would see anything acknowledging that discrepancies exist and trying to account for them as singling out for special treatment when it is the opposite of special treatment. It is acknowledging the differences and then trying to account for those to eliminate special treatment. But what do they know? Not a lot. Not a lot. I have to step outside and use the small puppy restroom. What can I do in the meantime? I suppose. Does that do Control Shift T? There we go.
Or before. The task at hand to reverse this tide.
I suppose in the meantime, I will leave you with. Do I know any tricks for ventriloquism? I do not, because I do not have thumbs, so I do not have ventriloquism skills. Just a heads up, by the way, I'm going to keep this going probably for like another half an hour, so I'll stop at the hour mark. That seems like a pretty good stream, I think. But yes, like I said, I'm going to step aside for just a second. I will be back. In the meantime, you can enjoy this.
And restore our republic to its original moorings is too great for any one conservative policy shop to spearhead. It requires the collective action of our movement. With the quickening approach of January 2025, we have 2 years and one chance to get it right. Project 2025 is more than 50 and growing of the nation's leading conservative organizations joining forces to prepare and seize the day. The axiom goes, personnel is policy, and we need a new generation of Americans to answer the call and come to serve. This book is functionally an invitation for you, the reader, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and Miss Smith, to come to Washington or support those who can. Our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state. The project is built on 4 pillars. Pillar I, this volume, puts in one place a consensus view of how major federal agencies must be governed, and where disagreement exists brackets out these differences for the next president to choose a path. Pillar II is a personnel database that allows candidates to build their own professional profiles and our coalition members to review and voice their recommendations. These recommendations will then be collated and shared with the president-elect's team, greatly streamlining the appointment process. Pillar III is the Presidential Administration Academy, an online educational system taught by experts from our coalition. For the newcomer, this will explain how the government functions and how to function in government. For the experienced, we will host in-person seminars with advanced training and set the bar for what is expected of senior leadership. In Pillar IV, the playbook, we are forming agency teams and drafting transition plans to move out upon the president's utterance of, "So help me God." As Americans living at the approach of our nation's 250th birthday.
All right. I magically stepped away without disappearing from camera. Don't ask how I do it. It's magic. I should think. I should think in the future how to do that differently. I guess I could. So it goes. Okay, let's keep it going with more of the musts. U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Ooh. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office carries out a core constitutional mandate from Section 8, Article 1. The Constitution shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and investors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Strong intellectual property, IP protections, form the bedrock of American business and are a key factor in making the U.S. economy the most innovative in the world. As such, a conservative administration must constantly work to strengthen IP rights and combat the incorrect view that strong IP rights somehow limit innovation. Political leadership in a new conservative administration should support like-minded countries as candidates for leadership in the World Intellectual Property Organization and build strong relationships with international partners to strengthen intellectual property rights. Re-examine patent eligibility requirements in Section 101 of the Patent Act and support internal and or legislative reforms to enable U.S. leadership to critical and emerging technologies such as quantum computing, 5G, they believe in 5G, and artificial intelligence. Take a balanced approach to the Patent Trial and Appeal Board and prioritize rapid and transparent processing of applications and appeals. Work with administration partners and Congress to find and punish trademark infringers and counterfeiters. Oppose efforts to provide intellectual property waivers for cutting-edge technologies, including for COVID-19 vaccines. They believe in the COVID-19 vaccines, I guess. They probably have to. It was done under, Operation Warp Speed and stuff, right? Through the World Trade Organizations, blah, blah, blah. That's not as interesting or contentious. Add a citizenship question. Let's see here. I have both accounts in. Hey, how do I join the chat to chat in the person seminar as a grassroots organizer? I have both. Is this for me or is this for somebody else? Both accounts in person. Is for the person. You can plug stuff if it's relevant or helpful to people and not anything weird. Yeah. Add a citizenship question. Despite finding that the Trump administration's addition of the citizenship question to the 2020 decennial census violated the Administrative Procedures Act, the Supreme Court held that the Secretary of Commerce does have a broad authority to add a citizenship question to the decennial census. Any successful conservative administration must include a citizenship question in the census. Asking a citizenship question is considered best practice even by the United Nations. Just looking for some other musts that might be fun to read. Obviously, not all of this is going to be as grippingly excited as, outlawing all porn and putting anyone who, hosts porn on a website like in jail and registering them as a sex offender. Not all of them will be as exciting as that. But one can only hope. For the secretary, the economy. They have plans for the economy. I kind of doubt. Ba-ba. Let's see what this conclusion is to whatever part this is a conclusion to. Why not? Conclusion. Come on, select the whole thing. The good of the American family is at the heart of conservative labor policy recommendations. The long-standing tradition of a strong work ethic in American culture must be encouraged and strengthened by policies that promote family-sustaining jobs. By eliminating the policies promoted by the DEI agenda, promoting pro-life policies that support family life, expanding available apprenticeship programs, including by encouraging the role of religious organizations in apprenticeships, making family-sustaining jobs accessible, simplifying employment requirements and allowing employers to prefer American citizens when making hiring decisions. Among the other policy recommendations discussed above, we can begin to secure a future in which the American worker, and by extension, the American family, can thrive and prosper. So I can think of, and I'm sure you can, a handful of things that would absolutely improve life for the American worker. Things like improving union protections and the ability to form a union, um, improving and expanding Obamacare and Medicare for all and things like that, so that health insurance is not on the chopping block or on the table to be fought over in every union negotiation. Improving minimum wage, potentially tying minimum wage to living standards or to inflation, so that rather than fighting for raising it at every turn, it is just tied to a fluctuating number, and so it adjusts corresponding with what's going on in the broader economy. Um, what's that thing that Richard Wolff's always promoting? Giving employees the employee yeah giving employees the first opportunity to buy a business if a business is being liquidated or going out of business or put up for sale. First right of something it's called. Anyway, lots of really cool things, awesome things can be done. Improving our infrastructure and public transit so people could get to their jobs more easily. Improving all kinds of social services would in general improve people's ability to fight for higher wages or push their employers to give them the position or hours that they prefer, things like that. So what's the conservative goal for improving life for the American worker? Is eliminating DEI, eliminating diversity and inclusion. That's going to help the American worker. Promoting pro-life policies that support the family is somehow, supporting the American worker by getting rid of, choice and access to safe and legal abortions. That's going to help the American worker. Encouraging the role of religious organizations in apprenticeships. That's like really essential to the American worker these days. The only things that seem relevant here at all is making family sustaining jobs accessible. I mean, ideally, right? What's the line you hear people like Bernie Sanders say a lot is, nowhere in the U.S. can a minimum wage income support, a family, or can support a, 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom dwelling or whatever anywhere in the U.S. So, a 40-hour a week position should be available and should make it possible to afford a decent standard of living in the U.S. I don't know if that's what this small section here is attempting to produce or convey, but if I squint and really tilt my head, I guess I could see maybe they mean that. Simplifying employment requirements. I can think of a lot of ways that this could be cool, but I think what this is when conservatives harp on regulations. So why does an electrician have to meet all of these regulation requirements? Electricians should be able to be anyone who feels like it. Let's get rid of those regulations. If you folks remember that awesome quote, I used it in the review of The Fountainhead. It's that discussion between Dave Rube and who's the bald guy? Dave Rube and Joe Rogan, where Dave Rubin is like, why do we have all these regulations on construction? And Joe Rogan is like, what? You have to have that because people are trying to cut corners. They want to produce a job, as quickly and easily as possible. And if they feel like they could get away with cutting corners, they will. And so you need these regulations in place to defend against that. Allowing employers to prefer American citizens when making hiring decisions. This kind of thing reminds me of the ban the box movement. If you're familiar with the ban the box movement, it wants to get rid of having people put on there that they've been convicted of a crime if it doesn't pertain to the employment. If you had a drug possession charge when you were 19 or something that's on your record, maybe that's not relevant for if you are applying to this or that position. Um, anyways, awesome stuff. The other term I thought about looking up, now that we've looked up should and we've looked up must, I thought about looking up fight. How many times does fight show up? Place bets now. How many times does fight show up in this document? It looks like 71 times. The number's going up. How many times do we think fight is going to appear in this document? If you're place your bet somewhere in the realm of 72 times, you win. You win a free bowl of soup and a rubber cigar. For conservatives to have a fighting chance to take on the administrative state and reform our federal government, the work must start now. We read this, I think, when we looked at must. Let's go backwards. In Washington, there are no permanent victories, but neither are there permanent defeats. Rather, there are permanent battles throughout the policy arena. The other side is never standing still. While we may achieve tremendous success under conservative leaders, the left is always working to chip away at them, which is why we must constantly be prepared for the next fight. We agree with that, but in the opposite direction, right? Fighting pessimistic bias. I'm curious now. So fight doesn't seem personally to me to be that interesting, and we only have like 10 minutes more of this, and then I'm going to go back to working on my review of How to Argue and Win by Gary Spence. So in the meantime, if you folks in the chat want to throw some recommendations for terms to search my way, I'm going to go ahead and search those. Let's try anarchy, anarchist, no matches there. Try must. I did try must. Ooh, needs. Needs would be a good one. There are 3 occurrences of Antifa. Let's look at these. The department has devoted. So what department here? The FBI, maybe? Looks like it because they're saying FBI, FBI. What is this section about? The Department of Justice has a long, noble history, blah, blah, blah. So this is either DOJ or FBI. Let's find out what they have to say about that. The department has devoted unprecedented resources to prosecuting American citizens for misdemeanor trespassing offenses, aka Jan 6 people, or violations of the FACE Act, while dismissing prosecutions against radical agendas of the left like Antifa. Ooh, fentanyl. Ooh, search Mexico. That's a good one. Do woke. Ooh, these are good ones. I should have done this first. What was I gonna do? I did a little bit of transgender when we were searching the text-to-speech version of this, but now that we're searching the full document, let's see what transgender has, and then I will try woke. I will try Mexico. I should try fentanyl. I haven't tried left yet, but let's see what we got. We saw this one already. We saw that one already. Bureaucrats at the Department of Justice force school districts to undermine girls' sports and parents' rights to satisfy transgender extremists. I don't have the medical know-how to get into this, but I know a lot of other folks have talked about this extensively. My stance as of now is maybe if the medical community and sports scientific institutes or whatever um, have reason to believe that there is unfair advantages in sports where it is individuals against individuals, such as, weightlifting or wrestling or something like that. If they have a reason to believe that there should be criteria where, a person should be on um, uh, hormone replacement for an amount of time before participating in these sports, or whatever the case may be. If things like that need to be in place, that's understandable. I feel like when it comes to team sports, having a trans person in whether it's a they them or uh, male to female, female to male, um, in a team sport like basketball or soccer or baseball or something, I feel like that's just not that relevant. That's my 2 cents on that. I know it's not, you know, um, riveting, but that's my stance. Reverse policies that allow transgender individuals to serve in the military. Gender dysphoria is incompatible with the demands of military service. How so? I don't understand how so, but in the use of public monies for transgender surgeries or to facilitate abortion for service members should be ended. I feel like having access to safe and legal abortions might be, somewhat important for, having an effective military. But, what do I know? Mm. Sex discrimination. The Biden administration, LGBT advocates, and some federal courts have attempted to expand the scope and definition of sex discrimination based in part on the Supreme Court's decision in Bostock v. Clayton County. Bostock held that, quote, an employer who fires someone simply for being homosexual or transgender, quote, violates Title VII's prohibition against sex discrimination. The court explicitly limited its holding to the hiring/firing context of Title VII and did not purport to address other Title VII issues such as bathrooms, locker rooms, and dress codes or other laws prohibiting sex discrimination. Notably, the court focused on the status of the employees and used the term transgender status rather than the broader and amorphous term gender identity. Restrict the application of the Bostock decision. The new administration should restrict Bostock's application of sex discrimination policies to sexual orientation and transgender status in the context of hiring and firing. Only to this. Withdraw unlawful notices and guidances. The president should direct agencies to withdraw unlawful notices and guidances purporting to apply Bostock's reasoning broadly outside hiring and firing. So they want to take away the Supreme Court's Bostock protections. Bostock, I keep adding an N in there. Bostock protections. Fun. Interesting. We saw this. Rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sexual characteristics. The president should direct agencies to rescind regulations interpreting sex discrimination provisions as prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, sexual characteristics, etc. Wasn't that fun? Let's rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on this, according to Project 2025. What was some of the other terms I was going to look up? Woke is going to be in there a lot, but I could do woke and then Mexico and then fentanyl. That's right. Oh, but I'm only going to be streaming for 3 more minutes. Let's see about woke. How often is woke in here? 30 times, 31 times, 32, 34, 35. How many times do we guess? Looks like it's stopping at 35. Let's look at some of these instances of woke. Contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of 1970s radical ethic to build the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. And now, as then, the Republican Party seems to have little understanding about what to do. Today, the left is threatening the tax exempt status of churches and charities that reject woke progressivism. They will soon turn to Christian schools and clubs with the same totalitarian intent. It turns out you might shouldn't be tax exempt if you are violating the laws around protected status regarding people's sexual orientation or gender expression. Maybe you shouldn't be tax exempt and get all this nice treatment if you are violating that. The next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. We saw that one already. Woke bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training and seminars about white privilege. Look out. The woke Pentagon. The Pentagon is very woke. Oh my goodness, was I leaving it on this screen for so long? My bad. I did not switch it back to this screen. Or is this the screen that we're on? No. Are we up to date on... Are we keeping up with chat? It should be the screen that shows... There we go. There we go. Sharing the screen. That's what I want. Unaccountable federal spending is the secret lifeblood of the Great Awakening. Nearly every power center held by the left is funded or supported one way or another through the bureaucracy by Congress. Colleges and school districts are funded by tax dollars. The administrative state holds 100% of its power at the sufferance of Congress. I mean, that is how it's, stated to be in the Constitution. And its insulation from presidential discipline is an unconstitutional fairy tale spun by the Washington establishment to protect its turf. Turf? There are many executive tools a courageous conservative president can use to handcuff the bureaucracy. We read this one already, but push Congress to return to its constitutional responsibility, restore power over Washington to the American people, bring the administrative state to heel, and in the process, defang and defund the woke culture warriors who have infiltrated every last institution in America. Let's get down to like the 20s here. The next administration will face a significant challenge in unwinding policies and procedures that are used to advance radical, gender, racial, and equity initiatives under the banner of science. Similarly, the Biden administration's climate fanaticism will need a whole of government unwinding. As with other federal departments and agencies, the Biden administration's leveraging of the federal government's resources to further the woke agenda should be revised and scrubbed from all policy manuals, guidance documents, and agendas, and scientific excellence and innovation should be restored as the OSTP's top priority. OSTP. An office of something, I'm guessing. Where can we find where they first use OSTP? Got to get all these acronyms in here. Office of Science and Technology, OSTP. The Office of Science and Technology must be completely scrubbed of the woke agenda, radical gender, racial, and equity initiatives, climate fanaticism, um, you know, understanding race and sexuality and climate is that the Office of Science and Technology is no place to understand climate and race and sexual orientation. Hate to break it to you. Um, ooh, and we're past 5. We're past 5. So I was gonna stop. Not to dox myself, but it's 5 in the time zone that I'm in. Hate to dox myself like that. I'm gonna check fentanyl real quick just for fun. Before I leave you, bid you a farewell. 14 cases of 14 cases of fentanyl in this document. Office of National Drug Control Policy. Congress created the Office of National Drug Control Policy, ONDCP, through the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988 to serve as a coordinative auxiliary for the president on all matters related to drug policy. The next president's top drug policy priority must be to address the current fentanyl crisis and reduce the number of overdoses and fatalities. This crisis resulted in the deaths of more than 100,000 Americans in 2021. Whew. The funny thing, a term that's maybe inappropriate to use here, but a funny thing about the conservatives' discussion of fentanyl is that the data suggests it is not illegal immigrants illegally entering the border or asylum seekers who are smuggling fentanyl and very likely to get a lot of attention from border guards. It is instead American citizens with American passports that are not going to get a lot of attention from border security who are the ones most likely to be smuggling fentanyl into the U.S. Hate to break it to conservatives, but the data suggests that that is the case. The next administration must reaffirm a commitment to preventing drug use before it starts, providing treatment that leads to long-term recovery, and reducing the availability of illicit drugs in the United States. If you know a lot about drug use, we have some oxymorons here because we want to ideally have a low barrier with a low barrier to seeking treatment and a low barrier to, recovery, clean and safe injection sites and needle exchanges and stuff like that seem to be more successful than handcuffs at solving the drug problem for folks who are struggling with drug addiction. The drug trafficking environment is exponentially more dynamic and dangerous today than it was 5 years ago, as powerful synthetic opioids, fentanyl, and its analogous are mixed into other drugs of abuse. Drug trafficking organizations are extremely nimble and able to adapt quickly to federal government action and changes in user behavior. I mean, that's, again, some of these are going to be correct identification of a problem by a conservative group or think tank or whatever, then tripping over themselves with a completely incorrect solution to that problem. So let's not get it twisted here. A fentanyl-free frontier. The same cartels that practically run Mexico. I almost wanted to... The same cartels that practically run Mexico, folks, are also working with the PRC to fuel the largest drug cartels in history of North America. It's not good, folks. You gotta tell me to stop if that's awful. If my impression is awful, you gotta tell me to stop. Or say, my impression is the greatest. if it's not bad. These Mexican cartels are working closely with Chinese fentanyl procures chemical manufacturers importing these procures chemicals into Mexico, manufacturing fentanyl on Mexican soil, and shipping it into the United States and elsewhere. And so long, toodaloo to the folks who are dipping out. That is quite all right. Um, One last thing to look up just for fun is Radical. Since this is the Radical reviewer channel, I feel like that is a not bad place to stop. So let's find some examples of Radical in Project 2025. International organizations should not be used to promote radical social policies as if they were human rights priorities. Doing so undermines actual human rights and weakens U.S. credibility abroad. The next administration should use its voice, influence, votes, and funding in international organizations to promote authentic human rights and respect for sovereignty based on the binding international obligations contained in treaties that have been constitutionally ratified by the U.S. government. It must promote a strict text-based interpretation of treaty obligations that does not consider human rights treaties as living instruments, both within the State Department and within international organizations that receive U.S. funding, including by making respect for sovereignty and authentic human rights a litmus test of personnel decisions and elections processes within international organizations. Ooh. The Biden administration has deformed the agency by treating it as a global platform to pursue overseas a divisive political and cultural agenda that promotes abortion, climate extremism, gender radicalism, and interventions against perceived systemic racism. It has dispensed with decades of bipartisan consensus on foreign aid and pursued policies that contravene basic American values and have antagonized our partners in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Oh boy, folks. Oh boy. USAID is being used to promote a radical climate agenda, a radical gender agenda. Look out. The administration has incorporated its radical climate policy into every U.S. aid initiative. It has joined or funded international partnerships dedicated to advancing the aims of the Paris Climate Agreement and has supported the idea of giving trillions of dollars more in aid transfers for climate preparations. The Biden administration's extreme climate policies have worsened global food insecurity and hunger. Its anti-fossil fuel agenda has led to a sharp spike in global energy prices. Inflation has hit the poor the hardest as they expand a higher proportion of income on food purchases. So this is a big thing that conservatives lean on, right? Is this idea that the idea that because climate change and global warming is fake, never mind the fact that, if you live by a pond that used to freeze solid in the winter when you were growing up, and now it no longer freezes solid. If you live in a place that used to get a couple of inches of snow for weeks every year, and now maybe gets snow, maybe doesn't. If you've seen those changes through your lifetime, I know that I certainly have. Not to mention all the science, of course, backing up the existence of climate change. But the climate change hoax, giving money towards that is money that should be used to help poor people and build infrastructure based on fossil fuels that will help poor people. Of course, conservatives don't give a shit about helping poor people. That's why they don't give a shit about social programs and services that help poor people. They don't care about any of that, except if you're going to use any money to address climate change, wait now, that's money that you could be using to fund the fossil fuel industry and thus, give cheap fuel to, poor people and thus improve the lot of poor people. All of a sudden, helping poor people becomes important under that rubric, but not otherwise. Anyways, let's go ahead and call it a day, folks, because I'm going to grab a bite to eat and I'm going to get back to working on my next review. But that is a quick look at what is actually contained within the mandate for leadership, the conservative promise known as Project 2025. Hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope that you can take some time to go to Jazz Blues Florida, go to their YouTube channel, go to playlists, or if you just go to YouTube and search, if you search audiobook, it won't come up for some reason, but if you search text to speech, it will come up. So if you search Project 2025 text to speech on YouTube, this playlist will come up. If you go to Jazz Blues Florida, Project 2025, and go give a look, go give a listen to this document, skip around, Control F on the transcript for some key terms you want to, look into if they're relevant to you, if you're really personally interested in climate change, if you're really personally interested in LGBT rights, in trans rights, in racial, equality, in gender equality. If any of those topics are particularly of interest to you, click through here, go to the transcripts, see where it's at, listen to what this agenda is pushing for, go to the document itself and Control F, relevant terms towards, things that you are deeply interested in. And, see what the conservative movement is pushing for and be mad at it and speak out against it and quote it. Talk about it to your friends and family and coworkers. Say, hey, I looked up what the conservative movement is pushing for in this mandate for leadership BS, and I think it's bad, and we should vote for Kamala Harris or, definitely rally against the conservative movement at any rate. So highly recommend that. Thank you for tuning in to the stream. Hopefully it went off more or less without a hitch. I will catch you folks next time. Enjoy your rest of your week and your weekend, whenever that might be. For me, my weekend is now because I am a, service industry wagey cagey schlub. So it is my weekend right now and I am enjoying it. So go enjoy your weekend. Go look into this crapola and be vigilant, fight, have a good one. Take care. Bye.